Yeah, it's a 2 mile swim followed by a 116-mile bike, followed by a marathon, which is
Wow.
26 miles, 26.2 to be exact.
Just the marathon alone boggles my mind.
You're watching the Spotlight Network, starring Hollywood's newsman, Logan Crawford.
They now believe a single member.
He works with TV and film legends. And now, Logan's shining the spotlight on the world's top emerging authors and creators.
International were abducted.
This is Spotlight with Logan Crawford, streaming on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire TV.
I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're talking about triathlons with an amazing author and a great athlete, Richard Benevento. He has penned a book you're just going to love. It is called Journey to Blue Lake, My Tri-Dream Comes True. It is a candid, funny, and motivating newbie to try story that turns confusion into confidence. After a major personal loss and life upheaval, Rick uses swim, bike, run training to rebuild his mindset, his health, and his sense of purpose, one workout at a time. From decision day to race day, he shares practical tri-tips, transition guidance, checklists, and the hard-earned mental game that helps beginners get to the finish line. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today, and we ask viewers like you to support authors like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his amazing book. The links are below this interview. Rick, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Thank you, Logan. I appreciate it.
Great to have you on the show. Wonderful book. How old were you when you decided, like, hey, I want to be a triathlete?
I'm trying to think about that. It was probably before 50, because that was my biggest thing to try to do that before. So it was early 40s, I'd have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
40s is when you start getting those aches and pains and the knees don't feel quite right and the back doesn't feel quite right. So what made you say that I'm going to do this? I can do this.
So one day I went to go visit a buddy of mine that was doing his first triathlon. And I'd been a runner, I'd been a biker, I'd been a guy that worked out a lot. And I went up and saw him race at 7 a.m. And what I saw, Logan, was people of all ages, of all sizes, of just every ability, fast or slow. And I'm sitting there drinking my coffee and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I'm at least in shape than half of these people that were coming out of the water. I mean, I did it in a fun way, but I was like, they did it in open water. I haven't yet, but I just felt like that was my calling. And after that, I went back and signed up after talking to my girlfriend, my wife at the time, and I said, yeah, let's do this. And so that's when the anxiety really hit, is that this was becoming real.
And you'd be doing it a year later?
Yeah, it took about 8 months, 9 months after that before I really decided to, sign it. I mean, the sign up was for the next year.
For the next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. And the motivation you talk about, if he can do that, I can do that. That's very real. When you see people in your own peer groups who don't look like they're, chiseled out of marble, like I can do this too. So I'm glad you had that motivation. For the folks at home who don't understand exactly what a triathlon consists of, I know it's running, biking, swimming, but how long do you run? How long do you bike? How long do you swim?
Yeah. So the first level that I did and what I wrote my book about was called the sprint level. And so it's the whole thing took me an hour and 15 minutes. So if you think about your daily workouts, you can wrap your head around, I was working out for an hour to an hour and a half.
Right.
That was my ability. So that just that was the first mindset that I had to put my mind into. The second part is the swim was the hardest part. I had to swim 750 meters. Now that doesn't mean anything to anybody unless you've gone into a pool and look down a 50-meter pool and go, oh, I've got to go do that,
15 times.
Whatever. Yeah. You do the math. Thank you. Appreciate that. And it was mind-boggling. And then I had to transfer that mindset into doing it in open water, whether in this particular situation, it was a lake. So that was the hardest part. And then the bike was, let me think, it was 13 miles on a bike, which is nothing, it's an easy, everybody can get on a bike, and it was flat. And then a run was a simple, 3-mile run. So I say simple because if you break those into 3 different events, it's not a hard workout if you've done any kind of workout. right?
Right.
Put them all together and learn how to transition and figure out how to do it so you're not like completely wiped out before the run. That was
Right.
the thing that you had to really learn how to do.
So you run first, then
No,
swim, and then bike? No.
nope,
So give
no.
me the order.
You swim first, and
Okay.
then you jump on the bike, and then you run as the last.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So every time I got out of the lake, I knew I was going to finish unless my bike broke down or I cramped up so bad. I wasn't dying in the lake or drowning. So that was my always my motivation right there.
Gotcha. Gotcha. You were a college athlete.
Yes.
You were a gymnast. So you were trying to get back to your college shape a little bit, I guess, right? Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was a gymnast at University of Iowa. I had a scholarship there, competed 3 years, and a major wrist injury took me out my fourth year. So the university, I was fortunate that they still took care of my scholarship and my schooling, and I finished.
Mm.
But there was something missing. And so that competitiveness, when you're at the level that I was competing at a D1 level, there's a level of competition and growing up your whole life in the gym, and when it shuts down so quickly, you're kind of lost a little bit. And
Hmm.
so actually prior to me doing triathlons, I actually was also a professional entertainer. I was with the Bud Light Daredevils, and that was a
Cool.
slam dunk trampoline show at NBA and college games.
Neat.
So I got to get my competitiveness kind of back, my entertaining type personality back, but then an injury took me out of that.
Huh.
So we talk about life markers, right? And things that shape us. So I had a gymnastics injury, I had a Bud Light Daredevil injury, and I was just kind of like, where's my competitiveness? I can go work out in the mornings or afternoons or something. And I just decided I wanted to do something. That's when I was starting to kind of do more just running in general. Every morning I was running and just working out, but I needed something more. I wanted
Yeah.
that competitiveness. And when you miss it and you're not competing, it's part of your life that you just kind of, you feel empty. And
Hmm.
um, so I got that back, and it was something that, like I said earlier, that I went and watched my buddy do it, and it just kind of turned this light on. I'm like, wait a minute, I can do this. I'm gonna have to work my tail off to get there and overcome some major fears of swimming,
Hmm.
but the accomplishment at the end just made it all well worth it.
And that fear of swimming, I guess, is the biggest fear for most people, right?
I talking about it, I actually get nervous about it. I haven't been in
Right.
the pool for several years. It just was something where I've kind of had to take a step back and doing some things with my life. But swimming I was scared of open water swimming.
Hmm.
In fact, I got so bad sometimes, even I was training in the pool, I was putting my mindset of like, okay, I'm about halfway through. I'd be about right here on the lake. I'm visualizing it. But right now I'm hanging onto the wall, but out there I'm not hanging on to anything.
Right.
And so I had panic attacks in the pool and got out of the pool and had to sit there on the edge and just go, I'm in a
Wow.
pool. Let's finish the workout and let's get through that mental part another day. So
Right.
it was real. It was
Yeah.
really a fear that I had to overcome.
And how did you overcome it?
Confidence of swimming. I had a swimming coach, and just the hours and hours and hours. I probably spent more time in the pool than on the bike and the running than
Hmm.
any other three disciplines. And I
Yeah.
knew I had to do that because once I got to that level of, okay, I can swim 700 meters without touching the wall, or I mean stopping. That was my just the confidence. And then finally, when I got out to the very first open water swim, I was that was just a practice. I had my wetsuit on, which, by
Hmm.
the way, for new triathlon guys and gals, if it's a lot of buoyancy
Yeah, that's
having
what
a
I've
wetsuit,
heard.
right? So even though I was nervous, I knew if I something went wrong, I could lay on my back and just catch my breath for a second and then keep going. And that did happen. I did have a little panic attack and
Right.
started over breathing too much, and I had to stop. I laid on my
Hmm.
back,
Yeah.
and then I kept going. Yeah.
Yeah. Swimmies are not allowed, right?
No,
No,
no.
just kidding.
If
I'm
I
just
would have put them under my wetsuit, I would have done it.
exactly, exactly. No, I've heard that the wetsuit gives you buoyancy, so that's got to be helpful and also keeps you
Yes.
warm. Where were you actually swimming? Was that Blue Lake?
Actually, my first open water was at Hag Lake. It's out in Forest Grove, Oregon, and it was a group of folks from the Mortlam Athletic Club that we all trained at, and
Mhm.
so there was a group of us about maybe 8 to 10 that was out there, including my coach, Bridget Dawson.
Okay. So once you did the first sprint triathlon, did
Yes.
you keep on going and progress to bigger, longer events?
I did. There's actually three other levels. So you jump up to the Olympic level, and I did a couple of those, one with my wife at the time, Erin, and then I jumped up into doing a half Ironman.
Okay.
And I did roughly four of those. And I say roughly because one wasn't called an Ironman event. It was just a long distance event. So I did four long distance or half Ironman distances, and then I did work all the way up to which I never thought I would ever do was a full Ironman
Wow.
in 2018.
For those out there watching who don't know what a Ironman consists of, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's a 2 mile swim followed by a 116-mile bike followed by a marathon, which is
Wow.
26 miles, 26.2 to be exact.
And just the marathon alone boggles my mind. Really, when I see
It,
people running a marathon, I don't know how they do it.
I
And
only
you,
ran one marathon in my life just to get my mind wrapped around what a marathon felt like. I ran, 13 Ks and, half marathons and stuff like that. But I only ran one marathon prior to doing an Ironman. And
um,
to your point, Logan, I was like, I barely made it through that. And so when I was running that race, I'm thinking, how in the heck am I going to do this race after swimming 2 miles? In which for me, I'm a horrible swimmer. It took me about an hour and a half, and it took me over 6 hours to ride a bike 116 miles. So I'm already working out 7 8 hours in some serious heat, which was up in up in Whistler, Canada. It was over 95 degrees the whole day. So I'm just running this race going, there's no way.
yeah,
I mean, the amount of training, not physically, Logan, it's more mental when you get to those levels. It really
mhm,
is. Because you really have to fight through some demons in order to get through these events.
yeah. Yeah, it just, like I said, it boggles my mind to do all that, to swim miles, to bike 113 miles, and then to run 26 miles. You know, it's almost incomprehensible to me. Um, you say a lot of it's mental. So a lot of it's like you're pushing through the pain. I mean, because your body's got to be
Mhm.
physically hurting at that point too, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so I think the mental imagery and the mental toughness I actually learned as a gymnast. The
Mm.
amount of mental practice that we did even before we jumped on the event was something I learned at a very, very young age. And I was able to, lean on that experience and knowledge of how to do it.
Mm.
Um, yeah, you just kind of start talking to yourself and you start, giving yourself affirmations and just you're your biggest fan, right? So
Yeah,
if you're not patting yourself on the back and giving yourself confidence that you're not going to drown after a mile and a half of a swim, you better be, you better be telling yourself some pretty good things there. So yes, there's a lot of training involved physically, but on the same part, there's a lot of mental and also the nutrition part. Which we really hadn't talked about. The nutrition part's really big
yeah.
too. Like you got to be eating. I was out on that course for 16 hours and 50 minutes. So, I mean, I was having lunch, breakfast, and dinner and happy hour all in one day. I was like literally just like it was a full day of me just training. And you
Right,
have got to learn how to take the food in, what works with your stomach, what might work with your stomach. I mean,
right.
that was a whole part of training too, which was difficult and challenging.
Well, let's
Yeah.
talk about food.
Yep.
So do you eat during the contest? I mean, other than like squeezing in some
Yeah, it
like
depends on the race. Like, so let's go back to my book. I didn't do anything other than water. I mean, I was out there
right,
for an hour and 15 minutes in the middle of the summer. It was a hot day, but that was just, some water and I might have had a goo or something like
right,
that. But as you train longer and longer, and the longer you're on that course, you have to have some carbohydrates. You just
yeah,
have to, that's
right.
the biggest thing. So you can drink your carbohydrates, you can eat your carbohydrates, salt tablets. I mean, you're sweating, you're
Hmm.
looking down and you're like, if you're not sweating, that's a problem. And that happened a couple of times for me. I'm like salt tablets and all kinds of just electrolytes. On my longest runs or my longest race, which was that full Ironman, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on my bike. Like
Wow.
I was like, I need some food because I was
Yeah.
on that thing for 6 hours. It was a really rough day for me on the bike, but I needed food, and then and I had to run a marathon after I got off that bike, which
Just,
was
oh,
crazy.
I just can't believe it. I really, it's amazing. I know people do it. To me, it's amazing. I'm not an athlete. I know my limitations, and certainly this is far beyond my limitations. But you are breaking it down for people who do think they could do it or might
Yeah.
want to do it.
Yeah.
So in your book, tell us how you break it down to make it digestible to people that they can do it step by step. Tell us a little bit about the method you prescribe for people.
Yeah. So you have to get a training plan. That's the
Mhm.
first thing. And you can, you can go on my book. I've got a very simple one that Bridget Dawson, who was my coach, she was a pro triathlete. I just follow a plan, and a plan could be anything that's going to suit you. You got to work around your work schedule, your kids' schedules, your
Yeah.
boyfriend, your girlfriend, your spouse, your partners, whatever. You got to work around your schedule and what works better. Are you a morning person or an afternoon or an evening person working out? So come up with a plan, and you just got to stick with it. And I tell you, try to find a training partner, because those mornings when you don't want to get in the pool, trust
Mhm.
me, you don't want to hear the heckling texts and everything else for missing a day of workout, because those are
Yeah.
worse than the actual workout. So, and I say that humorly, because I've got friends who are like, "Oh, great job, you must have slept in. I hope you got your beauty sleep, haha." And then everybody else piles on. You know how that goes. And so,
Yeah.
so get a plan put in place. And like I said, I have a real simple one in my book. You can just print it out or just cut it out, whatever you want to do. That's the biggest thing. And then the second thing that I looking back on is take each discipline differently. So if you're going to do a swim day and you're still kind of learning, just do a swim day. Don't think you got to do all three disciplines every single day during a workout.
Right.
Just because you got to do it one time um, on race day doesn't mean you got to train that way. Now you'll
Mhm.
learn how to do what we call brick runs.
Yeah.
You'll learn how to do, go out for an hour bike and then get off the bike and learn how to get your legs in shape and go run for a few miles. You'll learn to do brick runs because you will get your legs in shape and you'll do different transitions. But I guess my biggest point, what you asked was, how do you get started? Have a plan,
Right.
work on each three disciplines, separately until you can start kind of piecing a couple of them together.
Okay. What is a brick workout?
A brick workout would be I jump on my bike for an hour or two, jump right off, put my running shoes on, and go for a run.
Mm.
So you basically training your running legs after being fatigued after being on a bike. So
Gotcha.
it's like anything. You get them trained up to know. Like the last time I say from the first time to my races, my legs, I never really were tired getting off the bike.
Hmm.
I get loose a little bit, but the next thing you know, and I'm running, 13 miles, or in this particular case, I had to only run 3 miles. So I was
Yeah.
just, for the sprint level.
Are you still
Yeah.
doing it?
No, I haven't done after my triathlon, after my Ironman, I had a mental block.
Hmm.
It was very grueling. I was in the medical tent. I had IVs in me.
Wow.
I was really hurting. At the time, my wife was going through chemotherapy.
Uh,
She had been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. In fact, she just had a treatment prior to me going up to Whistler, and she was with me and watched me all the way through it. And that was my biggest motivation to get through that day of 16 hours and 55 minutes, I believe it was. But
wow.
after that day, my life changed. I had to now be a full-time caregiver because I was sacrificing my time for
Yeah.
Erin, and she never wanted me to quit. She was my biggest inspiration. And she
Right.
said, I don't want you to quit, even though in my mind I was like, I'm done. I got to just take care of you. So she didn't let me do that. So therefore, I was never going to quit the race, meaning I was cramping really bad in my
Hmm.
marathon. I could have thrown in the towel if it wasn't that particular situation. So she got sick. About a year later, she passed away July 5th, 2019. So, it just my life changed. And so I was taking care of her. I got out of, the actual triathlons. I haven't done a triathlon since. Do I ever feel like I want to do another one? Yeah, I think
Hmm.
so. Battling some injuries here and there, like everybody. I'm 57, so everything hurts a little more these days. But I still have that competitive edge, and I still try
Yeah.
to get back into working out. So, but yeah, I think someday I'll definitely, at least do another sprint. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think,
I just
but,
committed.
but
Everybody heard this. Now everybody's gonna blow up my phones. Like, okay, when are you
okay.
signing up? No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know. I know. Amazing. Amazing. Um, it just, like I said, to me, it's mind-boggling. But I have friends who do it, and they do the Ironman, they do the triathlons, and they do the marathons, and it's grueling. Um, but so why do you do it? Do you get a high from it? Is it the sense of accomplishment? I just gave you a lot of negatives. I mean, you also have to have people
There's
say, at your age, you're going to get a heart attack running at.
Right. I think it's a little bit of everything. I think my motivation was, yes, an accomplishment. I mean, when I wrote this, I didn't go out writing this book. This book started as a
Sure.
journal. And so, but when I completed it, it was a huge accomplishment. I
Yeah.
overcame some fears I never thought I'd overcome. So I think I think it's personalized for every individual. But for me, yeah, it was an accomplishment that actually, went all the way through to a full Ironman. But also, it was just that competitiveness too. People get as a D1 athlete, I can't shut it down. If I was playing
Right.
goldfish with my kids, I got twins, they're 10 years old. I wanted to beat them. I wasn't
Right.
going to let them win at goldfish or Monopoly or what. It's innate in me to be a
Right.
competitive person. Now, I wasn't a jerk about it, but I just don't like losing, right?
Exactly.
So you got to find something. And people find that in tennis and handball and racquetballs
Right.
and pickleball today's huge. You find whatever that competitive is. And if you're
Yeah.
not competitive, maybe you want to be the best musician, guitar player,
Right.
piano player.
Exactly.
You can put this book into anything in your life, overcoming public speaking. I
Right.
was a communication major. I comfortable speaking to you, speaking to
Yeah.
people. I enjoy it. I get a thrill out of that.
Mhm.
So I think it really has to depend on the person. But mine were just mainly that competitiveness and the huge accomplishment to overcome. Some
Yeah.
fears.
And
Yeah,
that athlete brain, like you said, is wired differently.
yeah, it is.
If you look at Tom Brady or listen to any of his speeches about motivation, like it's hard to get up at 6 a.m. when your friends are sleeping in and waking up to pancakes. It's hard to get
Right.
out there, so, and it is. If you're going to have an athletic pursuit, it is hard. I heard an interesting statistic. Most people after the age of 30 will never sprint again. It's
Mm,
just amazing. So there's people
wow.
like you who are out there. I play tennis and I'm active.
Sure.
I go to the gym every day, that kind of thing. I just,
Good.
like I said, I know my limitations. I got crazy feet and things like that I wouldn't walk if I ran 2.6 miles, let alone
Right.
26 miles. Another part of your book I thought was interesting too was emphasizing what gear to buy, what's worth investing
Mm,
in and what's not. Talk to us a little
huge.
bit about that.
Yep. Here again, I was a newbie. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a bike. I didn't have any, I had running shoes. I was a runner and ran a lot. So I had friends that said, go out to, at the time it was Craigslist, but go out to Marketplace, go buy used equipment,
Mhm.
don't go out and you can spend 10, 15, 20, $30,000 just on a bike. And
Right,
you haven't even put cleats on and you don't even know
right.
if you're going to like it. And you're going to be doing it for an hour and 15 as far as that race day. So go find something. Be sure to get your bike fitted. That's one thing that every biker tells me. Spend a little bit of money, go to a
Mhm.
bike shop, get fitted for it because you don't want your seat and you're too high or too low. So get seated, get fitted for that. Um, Here's my own little 2 cents as far as as far as biking and putting those clips in. You have shoes that actually clip in.
Yeah.
I didn't use those for my first race. It was something I just wanted to keep it as simple as possible. So I used
Right.
what they do, the cage, so that it fits over your pedal, your regular pedal,
Yep.
and your toe just clip or just slides in and slides out. And what I learned is for a sprint level triathlon where the transitions are very quick, I just had my running shoes on and I just slipped my foot out and I was out
Right.
running versus having to put my other shoes on from my bike shoes to my running shoes. So again, I tried to simplify as much as possible from a mindset, right? So you've never done a triathlon, you've never heard the word transitions, make it simple. So go
Yeah.
get used equipment, go get a used wetsuit, use what they call a cage instead of
Mhm.
clip-in pedals, and you're going to simplify your life during race day.
Yeah, that sounds like great advice. And also, if you don't have the clips, if you're not that steady of a biker and you're early going, you're not going to fall off your bike sideways and be
It's a
clocked
whole
into it,
you have to
right?
learn how to use them,
Yeah.
right? And you're in a bunch of traffic, and then let's say you have to brake quickly, and you're not used to turning your foot and clipping out.
Right.
You're
You're
going
going
over.
down on your side.
So make it easy on your first time, until you get used to it. And then I finally obviously moved up in the ranks of, my
Yep.
equipment. Yeah.
Absolutely. Talk to us about your minimum effective training approach.
Minimum. I mean, you have to be for me, you got to be in the pools. Like if it's if that's the hardest discipline,
Hmm.
5 days a week, you've got to, like, I did morning workouts on every day, and because that was my biggest discipline. So I think depending on how you're going into this, your first triathlon, depending on where you are starting, your
Hmm.
training, I would say you better be working out 5 or 6 days a week, and you definitely better be taking a day off. That's a
Yeah.
big piece that people don't think is important. You have to let your legs rest. You got to let your mind rest.
Hmm.
Feel free to go get a pizza if you've been really disciplined about your diet. Go have a beer, go have a hamburger. I mean, it's important to reward yourself after a hard week, but figure out what that day is. And it's okay to have a light day, but
Right.
really try to keep yourself from, like, skipping 2 or 3 days, because that's a habit that can get into, longer days, and then that's
Yeah.
not going to help you on during race day. But
But
you should
one day
be.
of rest every now and then is probably a good idea, right?
Yeah, and if you're
Yeah.
really pushing on, let's say you're pushing really hard on a Friday and you just want to do maybe just a swim on Saturday, feel free just to do a swim just to loosen up. I've done that, and then take a
Right.
day off on Sunday,
Wonderful.
or
The,
Monday or whatever. Yeah.
the title of your book points to Blue Lake. What makes
Yes.
that finish line so meaningful?
It was the lake was Blue Lake. That
Hmm.
was where my first race was, and I guess what made it was where I actually finished and completed my triathlon goal that I thought I would never, ever, ever do in my life. Like you said earlier, I've never done one, or I'll never do one. I said that. I've said that many times. And the fact that I finished that line, Aaron was there, my kids were there, my coworkers were there from work. They had signs out there. And finished that, when I crossed that finish line, I still get goosebumps. I'm like, wow, I
Yeah.
actually went out and did something, that I was at the time very, very, very fearful of.
Yeah. Well, conquering your fears is a great accomplishment. And, just completing that race, even though it is a sprint, to me, it's a monumental task. So, it's all a matter of perspective. When you look back at your journey as a triathlete, I know Blue Lake was a big one, but is there one story that sticks out? Was there one race where you're like, I'm not going to make it, or maybe you pushed through it much more easily than you ever expected?
The one race that I felt like it was at Coeur d'Alene, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because Erin was part of it. So
Mhm.
she wasn't diagnosed with cancer yet, and she was building up to doing triathlons with me. So she had gone from sprint to Olympic, and we were trying to get her to do a half Ironman.
Mhm.
So this is probably my third half Ironman at Coeur d'Alene, and I would just remember that it was my fastest race of my career at the time. I hit a PR, but I remember that it was all about her doing it, because she was right when I was right before my race. She actually we diagnosed with cancer. So
Huh.
I remember going out and just going, you know what, this race is for her.
Yeah.
And we had these purple pancreatic bracelets on, and I remember I've got a picture of me kissing it at the end of my race,
Yeah.
finishing as a PR. But I knew that we were going to try to get her to do one. That was
Yeah.
her goal. Unfortunately, her goal wasn't, didn't have enough life to
Yeah.
reach her goal.
Yeah.
But it was my biggest inspiration, and I think that's probably, I was more proud of that moment because she was really, other than my full Ironman, which is a whole nother book in the future. That race really stood out for me.
And so you're working on another book. You're working on your Ironman experiences.
Yeah, I mean, the cat's out of the bag again. I'm going to get blown up for this too, but no, I've talked about it. But this year, I'm really trying to focus, and I am retired now from work, so yeah, it's going to be, Journey to Whistler, or Journey to yeah, I think it's just going to say Journey to Whistler, and it's going to be my journey. A lot of the piece about pancreatic cancer, a
Yeah.
lot about how to be a caregiver, how to balance your time doing that, and training, probably arguably probably one of the hardest races that a human being can do.
I'm
I say
sure.
arguably. I say arguably because there's ultra marathons, and somebody's going to say, "Well, I did a 100-mile marathon." I'm like, "Congratulations, that's good." I mean, but putting three different disciplines together at those distances, I'm saying it's arguably one of the hardest
It,
human events that you can do.
it's
So,
amazing. It boggles my mind. So you've got my vote for arguably one of the hardest events a person can do. Amazing. That book sounds amazing. This book is amazing. The name of the book is
thank you.
Journey to Blue Lake, My Tri Dream dream comes true, a motivating, beginner-friendly triathlon guide that blends real-life struggle and hard-earned progress, as well as practical tools to help you reach the finish line. Thanks so much for joining me here today.
Thank you. And I have to also say thank you to the Reading Glass Books, who's been actually promoting my book and working with me, and the Writers Branding for helping with the editing. So I definitely want to give them a little plug if that's okay.
Absolutely okay. They're great teams. They help you and a lot of writers. To the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time.